Hey friends, Rob here. I wanted to start this episode out on a little bit of a somber note. Our friend Dr. Z, who helped compose the theme music for Bill and Rob's An Excellent Adventure, has unfortunately passed away. Our thoughts are with Gabe's family right now in these hard times, and we couldn't be happier for the song that we love hearing every single time we make episodes for you. They were a great part of the Greatest Gen community, a great part of the Bill and Rob's community, and it is a significant loss for a very talented human being. Bill and I have decided to put this episode outside of the Patreon paywall in hopes that more people can hear this wonderful theme song.
Welcome to Bill and Rob's An Excellent Adventure. I'm Bill Tilley.
And I'm Rob Schulte. Hey, Bill. Welcome back. We're recording on a Monday and not a Friday.
I know. The vibe is way different. It feels like we shouldn't have this much fun on a Monday.
No.
This is how we end our week. We don't start our week with this, but maybe, I don't know, maybe this will be a great week now that we've done something fun to kick everything off.
I truly hope it is. And Bill, let me ask you this. I saw this on TikTok recently. What day of the week are you? Is Bill Tilley? What day of the week is Bill Tilley?
I can ask these questions more frequently thanks to these short video formats from all the people I know and love.
Yes.
I mean, if I'm really honest with myself, I'm probably a Thursday.
Okay, that's interesting. I thought about this for a while. I still am not convinced I have all the right moves or answers, but I feel like I'm a Friday. And not because I'm like a party guy, but because like, give me a break. You know, I'm like, I'm ready to do my own thing. You know, CEO of doing my own thing, quite frankly.
Friday's marvelous. I mean, nothing beats the exact moment of quitting time on Friday because that means you have maximum weekend ahead of you.
Yes.
But I kind of know that I live in that liminal space where like Thursday's close. I mean, and I live my life so close to victory on so many things, but they're just not Friday reachable. You just got to keep striving for that. So hopeful, but man, I'm a make it one more day kind of guy.
And I love that about you.
Live another day.
Well, speaking of living another day, a lot of people are living another day flying into the weekend on this movie that we're and this is this our third live stream version of this? It's going pretty well.
That's correct.
Yeah, we did Gymkata and then Hell Comes to Frogtown, and now we're mega forcing our way into people's Twitch streams. And
I know.
I'm digging it.
Yeah, and you think, I mean, the people at bigtwitch.com have got to be looking at this video going, what? This isn't like video game content and short form weirdness coming out of somebody's car. What is it? Any stuff from the 80s movies? What is this?
What is going on?
We are algorithm chaos agents, Rob. That's what I want us to be.
And it needs to be that way. I think we all know this, Bill. Well, in speaking of chaos, this movie is chaos with a whole lot of great patterns, I think. And can I just say, before we get into MegaForce proper, that I think there's a lot of questionable things that will probably be brought up about the costumes in this movie. But I would love some sort of like sweatshirt or long sleeve attire with those brown stripes, right? Like there's something about those brown stripes that I think maybe it's that they're brown, that they scream like autumn, right? Like it needs to be some sort of winter or autumnal wear. So it has to be like a sweatshirt or long sleeve shirt. Then I think would just be very striking on me. but I don't know if they'd work as well as like a t-shirt.
I don't know. I mean, I probably would. And you got to remember the thing about these kind of 80s patterns are they were the masterful times of taking a standard color and then adding a striking color element over top of everything.
Yeah. So like this one, it's like brown with lighter brown.
Mm-hmm. Now, definitely could see you pulling off a nice, thick sweater with that pattern on there. Although the problem is you live in a place that no longer lends itself towards that.
I will say
all.
it gets chilly in the mornings in November, December, so there is some sweater weather. But
Now, maybe a nice MegaForce themed hoodie,
that would be great. That would be great.
You know, a nice pullover sweater type of deal that you can maybe something with a little bit of a collar on it. That would be
How about
good.
a whole pajama jumpsuit set that's in
Could
the style of there?
I mean, you know, you still do have to go into the office sometimes. Why not just wear the full jumpsuit?
I think the full jumpsuit would be great, and then the pajama jumpsuit when I get home. Obviously, you know, when
Absolutely.
I need
And you know, instead of the
clothes.
flag on the shoulder, you could put a Vanderpump Robs.
That would be great. Or how about a Bill and Robs?
And a Bill and Robs, you know, on the other.
We do need some sort of patch, I think, for our podcast. Our podcast screams patch.
Yeah, it is a sign of success when you reach patch-worthy levels. You see somebody wearing that. I mean, you know, you don't. That's when you just look at them and go, "I understand."
I get it. I get it. And the adjacent punk kid, and I mean this in all sincerity, that is going to see their rock and roll band with their jean jacket, but they've got a Bill and Rob's patch. It's somehow they're inapproachable. They're an approachable person, you know. It's tongue in cheek.
And you know, I would be so proud to see on the news where some kid, you know, tried to jump his bicycle over a tank at the VFW display, and they zoom in on him, and of course, what's he wearing? There's our patch. He's heard the episode. He's gone for it full Ace Hunter style.
I love this. And Bill, I think that we could make this happen. And maybe if with enough patrons at patreon.com/BillAndRobs, we may be able to do a patch for every series we cover. I think that could be fun.
I think it would be very awesome. If there's nothing I've learned in working with this and with the other online stuff and the other podcasts that you and I have worked with, is that all it takes is enough people and you can have whatever merch you want.
That's so true. One day we'll be selling swim trunks. Anyway, Bill, I think we should get into the back of the box. How about you?
Absolutely, because this is the kind of movie that barely fits within the VHS tape, in my opinion. It's one of those, and you reach for it and you pick it up. Something in it you just sort of shakes a little bit when you look at it and you're like, oh my God, this is an experience I'm about to have.
Oh my God. Should I read the back of the box this week?
Yeah, I read last week, so give me some movie guy back of the box.
This is also the hard clamshell VHS, I think. You know, that's why it's also got some hefty lift to it for sure. And you know, I've pried it open because I had to watch it, even though it's in pristine condition. But I've got that little like crinkly sound as I'm tacitly turning it over for MegaForce 1982. Colossal special effects and death-defying stunts highlight the futuristic thriller MegaForce. Barry Bostwick stars as Ace Hunter, leader of the elite task force of adventurers who gallantly fight to uphold justice. Their ultra-modern weaponry figures predominantly in their perilous mission to save a small democratic nation which has been invaded by a band of ruthless mercenaries. Director Hal Needham's undisputed mastery and knowledge of stunt work is vividly apparent throughout the many action-packed scenes. The high-flying stunts, combined with the dynamic display of futuristic vehicles, makes this an extraordinary film experience. And hello to Brett in the chat.
Hello, Brett.
Yeah, we're watching MegaForce, and that was a hell of a back of the VHS box, Bill.
Yep, and you can tell by the heavy emphasis on what's in the movie versus what the movie's about that you're probably not going to get a lot of deep story, but you're fairly well certain you're going to get some stuff that blows up pretty quickly.
Yes. Well, Bill, I think we have a few explosions we need to get through in the segments we cover. Why don't you tell us about the first segment?
The first segment is where we try to dig up some facts on the thing that we just watched, any kind of facts, because I think Rob will back me up on this. Despite the internet, it is still ridiculously difficult to find facts about some of these movies that just are hidden or maybe not well known. You'd think there would be a plethora of some of this stuff. Like you'd think every movie gets an interview segment with all, but they haven't all been saved, or they're not out there, or they just didn't happen. But we do the best we can to not be ordinary. So for our fact section for MegaForce, we've given it the very specific title based off Ace Hunter's family crest motto. Instead of deeds, not words, we're looking for facts, not words. Which is really wrong, because we are going to use words to describe these facts. But much like MegaForce, it's okay if it doesn't make some sense somewhere.
I wouldn't have it any other way. Now,
good, because you can't.
Yeah. I'll go first on this one, because I think one of the biggest things listeners would pick up on is the fact that it is rumored, Bill, and I know a rumor is not a fact, but I saw this in a couple of spots, that this movie heavily influenced the making of the satirical puppet film Team America World Police by our friends who created South Park. And once I read that, I couldn't unsee everything in this movie being a direct influence on Team America.
I have not seen Team America the full way through.
Okay.
But I've seen enough of it that once somebody said that, I could be sure this could be a fundamental part of that movie.
Now, I haven't watched Team America World Police in many, 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 many years. And in my youth, I'm sure I thought it was a lot funnier than I would find it now. Maybe I would find it funnier now. Who knows? But I do remember like the over-the-top romance segments, which we also found in this. And I think all of those like little pastiche parts. And then, of course, there's the South Park elements to it. But I can see why this movie would influence that very, very thoroughly. Yeah. What about you? What's one of the words, facts, not words, that you've pulled from this film?
So I managed to find an interview with Barry Bostwick and Michael Beck that they had done about several things, but they talked about MegaForce. It was like a little reunion. And one of the things they mentioned is pretty evident once you see MegaForce. And ironically, I hadn't watched the movie before I saw the interview, because we do see things out of order sometimes where we can. We just we make it seamless for all of you out there. I know that's how you like it. And they had mentioned that safety, not a primary concern on set. These are some very dangerous and elaborate stunt sequences that go on. This is the stuff that thrills me to no end. These are the movies that I devoured as a child. This is not one of them, because I didn't get to see it till now, which is something I'm glad I rectified. But like the rockets that fire off the cars and the motorcycles were fairly accurate and really worked, but some of them would go haywire and, fire into the crowd or fire into the stunt guys. Apparently the assault buggies, the mega destroyers, were designed by Mattel as toys first, and they didn't open to let the drivers out. So all the stunt guys after the end of every day would be overcome with heat and exhaust fumes, and they'd have to be either taken to the hospital or they'd all have to go on oxygen every day. Like the stuff was just, you can tell by watching it. This was a dangerous set in a lot of ways. And even director Hal Needham apparently was joshing around on one of the TACCOM motorcycles one day, heads off out in the desert, flips the thing, breaks his ribs right on the spot. So, and these are the kind of things that, when I would watch movies like this back in the day, like you kind of always felt that, like you knew this work was dangerous, but there sometimes would be the thing that you would see where you go, oh, that's not your standard guy out a window, or, the roll over the hood and kind of pop off the top of the car and land in the street. Like, yeah, okay. This is dangerous stuff, hugely dangerous stuff, multiplied by precision driving and big bunches of vehicles going all direct, tanks blowing up. So I could understand why coming to the set for a lot of them would just be like, I don't know how they got through their day, but they did. And that shows you the stunt guys of the day, true pros, absolute pros.
And that reminds me, Bill, I do think we should probably, anyone who hasn't seen MegaForce, maybe you should rectify that. Maybe wait and listen to this whole episode. But can you give Bill the Cliff Notes of why there's so many dirt bikes and dune buggies and such for this film?
Well, it was a toy line first.
But I mean, like within the film, it's like they are a army of super cops, essentially.
They're called a phantom army.
Yeah.
I mean, in ways, and this will be the easiest comparison, they're kind of like G.I. Joe. They predate G.I. Joe as a filmed entity, but they've got, the equipment, the custom bikes and stuff, and they're all set up for desert warfare, even though they're marketed as a world police force.
Yes.
Which is interesting. Now I'm going to chalk that up to, we don't see everything they've got back in the hangar.
Hey,
so
this
they
is
very
just
well,
the operation they're on right now.
Yeah, they very well could have a bunch of urban stuff and maybe they've got helicopters. They had stuff back at the base. So I guess this is just the unit we get to see for desert warfare.
And they're all like a Benetton ad, right? Like everyone's from a different country.
Yeah.
One person is from a potentially different country in America as well.
Right. And, they also designate that by different sections of America. Let's say a certain version of rural America versus an urban version of America. And it's not a big stretch to say the actors in the movie, I don't think they're over the top stereotypes. I think some of them are a little light in some way. The movie's goofy.
Yeah,
and
they
goofy.
Play it that's so the straight. Word. Yeah,
they play it straight, comes off goofy, but the things that kind of go off kilter, stereotype wise, things like that. I mean, they definitely clang when they jump out at you.
Sure. I mean,
but I don't think they're egregious in any way.
I think it's kind of like when you watch. What's the Thomerson movie we watched with Helen? No, with Helen Hunt. Trancers. Oh, it's kind of like Trancers. That. It's not. There was no intent. It's just like, all right, this is what we did at that time.
Right. And I will say this: growing up watching stuff like this, you didn't always get diversity in that way. So when a movie and Star Trek's the easiest one, the original series to cite, even if they weren't exactly the people they were portraying in a couple of spots, it portrayed a crew of diverse people. So to get a fighting force of diverse people, which is what the G.I. Joe toy line was, it was a bunch of diverse people. It was really good to see that. Like, you don't think about it as a kid because diversity is not on your mind, but you just see it and it's there and it's like, cool, they've got all kinds of people from all over the world doing this thing. And it gets with you and inside your head without being explain-o-visioned like you kind of get today. Let me explain how diverse. I can see how diverse it is. You've showed it to me. So on with the story, please.
Show, don't tell. Show, don't tell.
Exactly.
And, I think that the other interesting thing here is I played all of the Metal Gear games on my stream, and this has a very something that develops throughout the course of that storyline is the military without borders that the big boss creates. And MegaForce is kind of a military without borders situation.
Yeah, kind of, until they're stuck behind one.
Well, let me get rid of this bot who's just spamming my chat.
He's going to get mega botted.
You're getting mega bot. Why isn't it letting me do it, Bill? Why isn't it letting me do it?
Have you tried using a laser beam?
Oh, I probably should. That would be a good idea.
Something will be done.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's done now. And the funny thing is, we talked video games. I'm talking video games because this had a 1982 Atari game. MegaForce is a 1982 Atari game based off the movie, of course. And I have to think that it's better than Atari's E.T. right? It looks like it's almost Space Invaders-y, but with a desert background.
I've looked it up a little bit because I was not a child of means to have video games, so I never had any of that stuff. I had a couple of friends that didn't know about the MegaForce one, but from what I've seen online, it looked on par with like Defender, or
Excite Bike.
Pitfall, all that kind of stuff. So it looked pretty neat.
And you got a flying motorcycle.
Here's the thing with me. If I ever delved into these things, it drove me nuts. If it's going to be called a certain thing, it needs to have the elements of that thing. So the fact that the motorcycle in the video game flies is great. It's not just Excite Bike wrapped with a couple of beige pixels and you call it a day. That stuff drives me crazy. So props to Atari for giving a MegaForce video game that it looks as much like MegaForce can in 8-bit.
And I'm sure that there's still a big hole in the ground somewhere where they dumped all the MegaForce games as well.
I'm sure there are prized possessions in people's collections because the movie has a following. And I'll bet when I was in my 30s and it was the 90s and I was playing Need for Speed and I found out you could go online and get your modem dial up and download skins for your car. I'm willing to bet I could have found a Mega Destroyer if I'd looked for it.
Oh man. I wonder if that's on there's a really fun game that's been around for about 10 years now called well, it doesn't matter, but it's essentially soccer with cars. And if I could get the MegaForce skin on that would be great.
That would be awesome. And there's plenty of motorcycle games. I used to play one. It wasn't called Excite Bike. I think it was called
Rocket League. And
do that with MegaForce would be awesome. Ride the bike and it can fly.
Yes.
Dude, come on.
This is all we need. Well, Bill, we could daydream on that all day long. What's your other fun fact?
The other fact is a fact per Michael Beck. So we have to take him at his word. And I don't figure this is probably wrong. Apparently, he was not the first choice to play Dallas in the movie, Ace Hunter's right-hand man. According to him, the first choice was Jerry Reed. Now, I found this great because I love Jerry Reed. He's my favorite musician. Plus, grew up on Smokey and the Bandit. Love him. Love the man. And my brain flashed through the things about the movie I knew real quick. And I'm like, that would have been different. And I don't think it would have been different in a good way. I think it would have been a rough fit. And I'm sure he probably was up for that because he was friends with Hal Needham and Hal did put him in a lot of his movies. But I'm glad they didn't do that. But apparently when he jumped out, Beck got the call and they basically did you got to be on a plane in the morning to be in the desert that night to act.
Good luck.
And he had to deliver that long ass soliloquy or whatever that he gives to Edward Mulhare and Persis Kambata, and that was his first scene. So you think about what actors go, they're workers and they work all the time, but the way they get jobs and the way they get thrown into projects, give them credit for when they hit the ground running, because a lot of times they have to. And I don't know, you or me, if that would be like we show up at work, we go home, and that night they go, we need a 40-page presentation by tomorrow afternoon. Knock it out.
Don't think I would be doing that. So as an actor, though, hey, give me that free plane ride. I'll memorize those lines.
Absolutely.
Well, what do we have next on the segment list?
Well, next we go into some even more happier things. This is a segment where we pick out a couple of things in the movie that we really, really liked. Something that really made us happy to see or just brought us some joy. And in honor of probably one of the two most iconic images from this movie, I have called this Kiss That Thumb.
Kiss That Thumb. I went first last time, Bill. Why don't you go first this time?
First off, Introvision. Rob, have you ever heard of Introvision?
Never heard of Introvision. Always ready to learn about Introvision.
So I'm somebody that reads the credits of the movies. Always have, always will. And it's popped up in the opening credits. Filmed in Introvision. Every time I see one of these weird vision things, I got to know. What is it?
Yeah.
What does it
tech
do?
Is happening?
What is happening? And Introvision was apparently a big deal. It was the front projection process that they used in this movie. They used it in Outland. I guess this is like the third movie they'd used it in, and this is one that's most well known. And that's how they made Eagle Base and the backgrounds to where they projected behind a screen on the actors, but they could also project in front of them, so they could walk through things. They walk behind things.
They could fly their motorcycle onto things.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just go. That's not the best one of the movie by far, but it really hit when they showed us Eagle Base, because they didn't build this thing, but when it's on screen and you're looking at it, you get the impression that this place is huge. I mean, they interact with stuff. You see the actors moving, and Introvision apparently would get rid of that halo effect when you would back then green screen stuff in, and you'd always see like it's an instant that's fake, right in your face. And
when your feathered hair is quaffing in the wind, and there's a green screen, it's fake.
And that is some coiffed hair, man. If they made a Barry Bostwick wig with beard attached, so you could get at everything, that's Halloween all over. That's Halloween every day. I just wear it every day.
Yeah, and that jumpsuit. Don't forget.
Yeah. So you put that process with the fact that they built all these amazing cars and bikes and props. They're real things, and I always love that tangible element. Like the designer for these things, his name was William Frederick. He did all this stuff for $1 million, which is a lot of money. And it was a 1/20th of the budget. They had $20 million budget. They spent $1 million on it. And it looks great in 1982 terms and beyond. And what I mean by that is I think of so many movies that could have used this process, because this was an accessible thing to do, that would have just been elevated to a better, higher level visually on screen and carried their films more with a little more substance and style. It's at the time, it's great. Now it's got phased out for, of course, digital processing, blue screen, CGI, all that stuff. But really, for a thing that's there, like, it's not that complicated to do, and you film your miniatures and you film your stuff and put it on there, it looks amazing. So I'm fully on board with giving Introvision a lot of props. They're not around anymore, but thank you for what you did do, because you did it on MegaForce and it made me smile. It looks great.
That's amazing, Bill. I'm taking an audible here, and I'm going to switch one of my likes. Okay,
sure.
I was going to say,
like MegaForce, this is a phantom operation. You can do what you like.
Phantom operation. I'm having to make ground level decisions in the moment, and one of those is that, I was going to say, who doesn't love dirt bike target practice, but I think that flows into a like that you have coming up. So I'm going to say, you had recently told me that you saw Rocky Horror Picture Show for the first time, and I kind of like that you were able to go Rocky Horror into, this is a meta one, into MegaForce, which you also had never seen, both starring, Bostwick as Ace Hunter. Now, I like that. I like that he went, you may have known me from Rocky Horror, but now you get me in my very serious action film that is less than serious. We get it. It's a little jokey, but this was a swing by Bostwick, and I love it. But I need your opinion, because you and I are not Rocky Horror guys, right? I'm currently reading my friend. I was a theater kid, right? I went to theater school and college and high school. I'm reading my friend John DeVore's book, Theater Kids. It's a memoir of his life, of off Broadway, all this sort of stuff, how theaters influenced his life. But he was a Rocky Horror Picture Show kid in high school, right? I don't think, I'm much like you, I don't think at my age I could get into Rocky Horror Picture Show live movie events. Now, you, I know, feel similarly from your experience, but could you do a MegaForce experience in theater? And how do you think that would look in comparison? Like the style of Rocky Horror, where everyone gets dressed up and has fun. Do you think you could do something like that with MegaForce?
I could do it. I appreciated the experience with going to see Rocky Horror, and I understand the appeal it had for all the people there.
Yes.
It brought them joy, and they like to participate in it, and that's easy to understand.
Oh yeah.
Not for me particularly.
Sure.
It was fine to be there and experience it because I like having new experiences. Now, Megaforce, I think you could do it. Absolutely think you could do it. You could have the same kind of, I think they call it shadow casting, where they get up and act out the movie, and somebody could have a cardboard motorcycle, and you could do all that kind of stuff. My only concern would be the elements of downtime in the movie.
Fair. But that would be where the games have to come in. Like,
Yeah,
how
you'd
do
have
we
to-
make this a whole experience for the people
Right.
going there?
Right. You'd have to fill that time, and either they would fill it or probably the crowd would fill it in. But I think Megaforce would be a great thing because apparently one of the big reasons it got a revival was because it was getting midnight showings with Rocky Horror.
Oh,
In certain
wow.
places
Okay.
back in the day. So they have a connection beyond Bostwick. They have followed the same kind of evolution from how they got into the culture and got shown. They shared those elements. So they are both midnight movies in their own right.
Well, that's fantastic. And I am going to save my review for the end of this episode, but I just think there's so much that can be done at midnight showings of this movie. Hell, a 7 p.m. showing, just as anything that brings people together.
Yeah.
I think this is a movie that is viewed best with a group.
100%.
I think that's what I'm trying to get at here. But I'll
100%.
expand that on our Five Nights for a Dollar section. But Bill, what's something else that you kissed the thumb at for this movie?
I kissed the thumb for, and I just wrote down stunts, and more stunts. Good Lord. This is me. I mean, this is everything that is in my DNA because this is the kind of stuff that I watched, I grew up on. It was everywhere. It made an impression. It was real. They were real people doing real things. And no matter how ridiculous or awesome the story was, the stunt work could just make or break all of it. And you just get lost in what people are doing. And you think, we all rode bikes. We want to jump things and do something. Kids my age back then, we want to do all this kind of stuff. We love dune buggies and motorcycles, and of course, you love blowing stuff up too because it's 1982, and you're kind of encouraged to do those things. So, I really, really dug seeing this movie and knowing that outside of a couple of the Introvision parts, it's all real. It's everything on the screen happened with real stuff and real people. And I'm always thinking, trying what it took to coordinate that kind of stuff, especially these giant battle scenes versus we've talked about this. You put it in the computer, you render it, it can come out lifeless if there's no reality to it. And this one's just a great one to watch. It's really fun. So, and it's clearly one of their big selling points. It's on the back of the box. It's in the movie. And Hal Needham knew what he was doing. He was an action director, and I'm okay with him steering towards what his strength was and going with it.
Well, that's awesome, Bill. I really appreciate your passion for Megaforce. It shows on top of everything else. I think I would just have to say that
maybe we'll do the midnight viewing.
I think if you can get a theater that wants to host a Bill and Rob's live podcast plus showing of something out there in your neck of the woods, I'd bite the bullet. I'd buy that plane ticket, man. I would do it in just the hopes that we could sell $3 tickets and maybe pack that place out, That
would be awesome.
Well, I think the other thing that I kiss the thumb at is just some of the odd visual choices that just seem to come out of nowhere at certain points. And maybe that's part of Introvision, but there is one section where we're learning about how Ace and Zara love each other or are falling for each other. And we get this like purple background with their silhouettes, and it just looks great. It looks really cool. And I was like, where's this the whole movie? I need more weird visual choices like that.
something that works well with that really out there sort of love song that's playing
Yes.
whenever they're on screen.
Yes.
It's Bond-like. When you think about it, it's a little Bond-like.
It is, and we need more of it. But Bill, not everything can kiss the thumb, as you know.
True. Some things get the finger, but it's not the thumb. And we won't go that far, but this is the section where we pick a couple of things that really kind of just shot our MegaForce straight into the desert and blew it up. It's not good, but this is a section I've clipped from another one of Ace's speeches, and I've called our dislike section, "That's totally inapplicable to anything going on here, and it's dumb." The movie's got some great dialogue in it.
Yeah, there are some like swings and hits. There's some
great.
There's some
terrible.
half bases, but there's also some swings and a miss.
Yeah.
But I love
good,
that they
bad.
try. I love that they try.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have to say, Bill, some of the scenes, especially some of the battles, are long and boring. And the problem is that they start off really fun and really cool. And then they kind of be like, well, we need 3 more minutes in the movie in this scene. And you can kind of tell that they are stretching. And when you start realizing it, you start like thinking about it, then you start going, what am I doing? And it is one of those things where watching it alone, I'm like, well, should I go pop some popcorn while the rest of this tank rolls across like Austin Powers, getting the thing done? And that's not just battle scenes, though. Some of the battles are like the most egregious, but there are other scenes where it's like, all right, what are we doing? Let's get to the fun parts.
Good Lord. The beginning of the movie where Edward Mulhare and Persis Kambata get taken to Eagle Base. It's like, what, 15 minutes of them just transferring vehicles and driving and getting out and driving and getting out. And every time you think they're there, they're like, keep driving. It's like, what is this? This is like a 9-hour trip through the desert.
Yeah. Also, you're not setting yourself up for success. It's like when we watched Manos Hands of Fate on Pumpkin Spice. It's like, I don't need to know where you stopped to get directions. Just get me to the satyr's house.
Right. I did notice, though, I think probably because this was a movie, not TV show, that you didn't get so much the edit of the same footage over and over of like a bike jumping a thing. Or a car coming around a corner. But what you do get is watching each individual rocket take off the roof and close-ups of the guns firing and alternating back and forth and close-ups of the tank guns shooting. And it starts to drag it along after a while. You kind of, it's not good because I did start to tune out a little bit.
A little bit. Not totally, but like if it was you and me watching this thing, eating some slices of pizza or something, or maybe a casserole, we would be in hog heaven.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's something that you may or may not have liked the most? Maybe it was dumb. You never know.
Well, this is going to sound weird for how much I've said good about the movie, but this story, like I like the movie, but the story is kind of crap.
What exactly is going on?
And I'm not alone in that. Barry Bostwick himself has said, I still don't quite understand what we were doing in the movie. We're trying to do. It's hard to get going. I didn't really understand Guerrera's storyline at the beginning. I'm like, I'm not sure what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
Why can't he go certain places? Why can't they? Is he already in the country that he's trying to take over? Or is it next door? It had too many vague elements about it. And then it got way too much into the setup of MegaForce, that whole drive and explanations. And, we see the base, which is awesome. And it is a long time through the base. I mean, if they'd gotten to the base quicker and that had just been the long element, would have been better. But they just go on and on about what MegaForce is when the crawl has already told us what MegaForce is at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And they don't quite match up. And that goes that way. And then when they finally get into battle, this really kind of pissed me off. And I'm going to say this aggravated me in a slightly less way than the original Mission Impossible twist did. They're sent on this mission. We understand. Get Guerrera. Now we're like, all right, we're going to get him somewhere, and Edward Mulhare is going to slam the door. That's got it. But then they get betrayed by bureaucracy because in the interim, politics do politics. They basically abandon them. Edward Mulhare and the British Army abandon them behind these enemy lines and like, we can't get you out. You're on your own. And then the movie becomes an escape from the desert movie. So they're being pursued, and that means they're not in a battle to win at all. It's not G.I. Joe versus Cobra in a big shootout to do a thing. They're on the run.
Yeah.
And I just feel like when you do that kind of swerve at the end, when the heroes are just, the only thing they've got left to do is escape.
Uh-huh.
Because they can't win, because you've told us they can't win, because it's already established they can't win.
The other team has 10 tanks.
I know, but more are coming.
Oh, yes, of course.
That's the thing. And it is 10 tanks. And tanks against
team. I called it team. It's like when my dad used to say we tied Vietnam.
Yeah. And I love how 10 tanks apparently are as agile enough to take on like 20 dune buggies and 15 motorcycles. But when you take all that stuff together and then you couple that with a G rating, it really cuts the movie off at the knees in a lot of ways. Like this is G.I. Joe cartoons had that problem, and in real life, I think it's even more noticeable. Like nobody dies, nobody really gets hurt, and it's not like I'm lustful for blood or anything like that. But there's no stakes, there's no anything really to come out from that. So I love the things that happen in a lot of ways in the movie. I just don't like the story that they're happening with.
Yeah, and I think it's just that this is a Mattel movie, I think. And if I were a young lad, old enough to play with, like I was a young lad. Well, when was this? 82?
82.
I was a negative 2-year-old when this came out, but
I wasn't going to point it out.
Yeah. If I were to have been, if this would have been made in 89, I would have been playing with all of these toys left and right and wouldn't have given a shit. And I would have grown up with this film and it would have been what it is. Although I was a Transformers and Ninja Turtle and Ghostbusters kid, I'm sure Megaforce would have entered the lexicon. But yeah, there's just too much emphasis on look what we can do, instead of like, look what we can do that also helps with a really great story. You know? So it is what it is. But
it is what it is. But you also notice that I don't think that this is a straight rip, but several years later, you're going to get a movie called The Delta Force. Which ain't far off from Megaforce in a lot of ways. But that's a rated R movie about guys shooting it up. And while not a masterpiece, many of us will remember Delta Force or have seen it before we've seen or remember Megaforce.
100%. Well, Bill, on that note, the other thing I just totally inapplicable, nothing going on here, is that there's this like cocky fraternity broness kind of peppered throughout this team that I just didn't really, I found it difficult to watch because I didn't feel for Ace very much. He felt a little too comfortable in that jumpsuit in a way that was like, well, you have to have some humility here, man. Let's take the whole picture in for a moment. Not saying you don't look great in the jumpsuit. You look fantastic, but you don't look cool per se. And when you have this level of like cockiness from all of these guys in matching uniforms that look like they're about to do a choreographed dance together, which is fine. I would love it. But like, we have to have some hubris here, or at least an attention to what's going on in the room or the desert for that matter. And so to see them acting, and maybe it was intentional and it went right over my head, but to see them acting so cocky in a less than cocky environment. I mean, those suits were pretty tight, but it made it a little bit difficult to be like, yeah, I'm rooting for you.
Yeah, and I might pin that on the fact that this is a G-rated toy movie too,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they're not going to be able to be any kind of real hard character when it
And
comes
there's
to
not
certain
much
things.
depth you can do in a G movie either.
Right. There's
Yeah.
not. And they're not really given any in a lot of
Sure.
ways. Like they
Yeah.
get names, I'll give them credit. So they get more names on this team than Discovery gave their bridge crew in 5 seasons.
That is
There's
true. And
watch me.
screen time.
Yeah.
Um,
Watch me dropping bombs on that one. So
uh,
but I totally see your point. It is a bit of a like, all right, everybody's trying a little too hard here to be cool.
well, we can't last too long on dislikes, but we do have one more. So
One
lay it
more.
on me, buddy.
Well, and this one it's real specific, probably real specific to me, is the end credits of this movie. How neat movies come with either bloopers at the end or B-roll. Like if you watch Hooper, you get to see the stunts happening and people were filming them, the cars land and crash and all that stuff. Cannonball Run and those, they'll alternate takes and blown lines, which that's interesting for me because the movie's not a comedy. I mean, it's lighthearted and we know what it is, but it is not a comedy. It's supposed to be an action movie. And this was a golden opportunity, I think, to show anything else. Like you could have shown off the stuntmen some more. You could have done some kind of end credit scene that alluded to the sequels that they had planned, which is good and bad when they don't happen, a la Buckaroo Banzai. But this is just replaying a bunch of the stuff that we just saw. A bunch of the stunts exactly clipped from the film. We get to see Ace's big long speech to Guerrero, which he has just given like 12 minutes earlier, that is a linchpin of the movie that comes out of nowhere for no real reason other than it's there. We get to see the super romantic skydiving scenes.
Oh, yes.
In their entirety again, which were boring the first time around with that slow music. Why do you want to end the movie this way? I just don't get it. I think if you're going to do this kind of stuff with these movies at this time and you want sequels, you got to put either just run the credits or you got to put something in there. If they'd done a music video, I could have got behind that for that Jam and Megaforce tune by 707, but they don't. And it's just, I'm just watching it going, man, I felt pretty happy with my choice up until this point. But the movie just kind of went, we don't know what to do. So watch some of the stuff you just watched. It's cool, right? Later. And that was it. So boo on you, end credits. Don't like it.
Boo on you. It's
and
what
they're
we
blurry.
keep saying. Well, there's a few things that could have had a little bit more better focus, metaphorically and physically, in this movie. But it ain't all bad. Some things in this movie definitely amused us. And is there a clever title for our amusing moments?
Well, there would have been if I'd remembered to write it. But, I guess this is just one of those things that just it goes off the tracks. So
I'm calling it New Boo Goofin'.
I'm going to call this one The Only Way Out is Through the Dry Lake Bed. Because the movie's got some dry moments in it, but we found some things that were amusing about it. I'm for sure, because I'm looking at our list. So I'll take this one first. I'm going to let you in this section for us. So one of mine, pretty soon off the bat, there's the goodbye scene with Ace. The plane's leaving. Persis Kambata, Zara standing there, and they're doing their thing, and they kiss and they do all that stuff. And the ramp's down, and Ace grabs the landing strut and does that jungle gym swing that we've all done, where you just kind of swing to the other side of the thing, like your feet leave the ground, hop, you're over there. And I'm looking at it going, dude, that is the least cool thing I might have ever seen on screen, but it made me laugh because it is super flamboyant and dopey, and it kind of fits his character. I feel like Ace is projecting young Bill at the time, where I'm going to impress her on the way out, but the thought that he has to do it is completely wrong, but he's committed to it anyway. So good. You just do the swing, see what happens. And I think she's nice. Oh my God. Like, no, you weren't impressed by that, but you must really love him because you didn't bust him on the way around and go, nice swing, Hunter.
Yeah. But you did wear headbands like that all the time.
Nope. But I might start now.
I think it's a great idea.
Well, older man, hairline receding, Yeah, that's a good look, right?
Yeah,
It won't look at all like
draw attention to it, I think is
yeah,
what
it
you
won't
need
look
to
at
do.
all like a rubber band on the Idaho potato. It'll be great.
Well, Bill, we've said it on like 5 different occasions, but those romantic skydiving sessions, they are a choice in this movie. And for a movie that really doesn't commit to the romantic plot, they want us to know that Zara and Ace are into one another for like a good 20-minute total of this hour and 35-minute film.
Dude, that skydiving thing is just, it's an Introvision splice in.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to tell you right now, that's a part where Introvision did not help your movie.
No.
You should have just stuck with it. But I always find it amusing when the movie writers make a choice to say, this is a bonding moment. Let's make the bonding moment something that is impossible to talk through. You can't have a conversation when you're skydiving. How do you get a connection out of all that? You've just thrown each other out of a plane. It's wild. It's absolutely wild.
And I love it. Because I think for all of the faults in this movie, you got to just throw in the ridiculous things to just go, all right, we're in MegaForce country, and I'm living like the locals.
You got one.
Yeah. What's your other amusing moment?
So this was a low key one that came out of nowhere. So the transport pilot that comes in, they have 2 planes, one gets shot, has to take off, and the one transport pilot is talking a lot on there. This movie has a lot of chatter, which is cool. It gives you the idea that stuff's going on, but sometimes you can hear it, like Hal Needham's in the movie and he's in the TACCOM unit. You hear him talking and they're going back and forth with this pilot. And he's got some snappy dialogue and some really weird sayings and things he's saying, like something about that voice, something about it. And you finally see through the window his face. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Robert Fuller. Now, Robert Fuller is a that guy actor from the day, and probably one of his best known things that a lot of people my age would remember him. He played Dr. Kelly Brackett in Emergency, the lead surgeon at Rampart Hospital. He's got a voice you can't miss, and he's kind of hidden in the movie. And my first thought was, how in the living hell did they get Robert Fuller for this part? And like, this is amazing. Like,
because they got him for probably like Friday night.
Yeah.
And just stuck him in that box and said, shoot these scenes. We'll figure out how to fit them in.
I'm guarantee you, he didn't have dialogue, because Bostwick's gone on record saying they wrote a lot of dialogue on their way to the movie because all they cared about was the stunts.
Yeah. And
there's like one exchange that I remember as he's trying to land the plane in this fire zone, and Robert Fuller, he's like, I got a real domestic situation happening up here I got to get back to. And Hal Needham's in the TACCOM going, well, I can't help you with that, but I can help you with this. And he blows up a bunch of stuff on it. Like, I don't know how you got that out of that conversation. That is nuts. But it sounds ridiculous, but it made me laugh every time he said one. So
I loved it.
Big time props to get a Robert Fuller as your plane pilot. What would have been a throwaway role in any other movie, and make it just this little gem at the end.
Well, Bill, speaking of gems at the end, I have to think, we talked about, and this is my final amusing moment. We talked about this influencing Team America World Police. What we didn't talk about was this influencing Top Gun World Police. I mean, Top Gun Maverick. And did you see the sequel to Top Gun that was definitely needed? And I'm glad we got.
Yeah, I did. And I'm not sure we needed it, but that doesn't mean I wasn't glad we got it, because
I had a blast. I had a blast.
Me too.
Tom Cruise is the last movie star. We all know this. You think what you want about Tom Cruise. The man loves his craft. And let me tell you, I will watch any Top Gun movie. I will watch any Mission Impossible movie, because there's at least passion going into these things. Mission Impossible 1 and 2 don't necessarily live up to the test of time, but let me tell you, Dead Reckoning was great. But Top Gun Maverick has the entire movie is, how do we get blow up this thing in, anonymous country that doesn't really exist, space, and then how do we plan for it, and how do we draw it on a map and do a computer simulation and then go do it ourselves. And I'm telling you, I haven't seen Maverick in a while, but the computer simulation they do in MegaForce looks an awful lot like the computer simulation updated for the 2000 era in Top Gun Maverick. Did you get that at all when watching this, or can you see what I'm talking about?
I can see what you're talking about thinking back on the movie.
Yeah.
And I could see why, because that effect is an Introvision effect using a scale model taped out in glow in the dark tape that they filmed and used to make this hologram. It's cool as hell. I mean, it looks like a full-on computer graphic video game table, and it's sweet. It's really neat. And the whole, you follow your X's through the hills and through the desert
valley, then you go over in this area, but there's only one place to go in,
right.
But you need to be able to get in this time and get out in this time.
And if it goes wrong, here's how you're going to die. Here's the line that you're going to follow to crash. Like, I could see it now that you pointed out, for sure.
Which really raised the points of MegaForce for me and Top Gun Maverick, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But Bill, we have one last thing we like to do on episodes. You want to explain it to anyone who might be new?
This is our rating system, and we rate our movies based on the movie itself. We call this 5 nights for $1. Back in the day, if you went in your video store, there might be a rack or a shelf somewhere in the store, front, back, and it might have a bunch of movies on it. It might say something like 5 nights for $1. You can throw down $1, pick your movie, keep it for 1 night, keep it for 5 nights. Up to you. Depends on how much you like it. What do you get out of it? And so that's what we do with our system. We rate the movie. We don't look at prequels, sequels. We don't look at anything else in these weird series that I pick out, comparing to the things we just watched a couple weeks ago. It's simply the movie. It is the experience of Rob and I have walked into our video store. Join us, won't you? Walk into your local video store of the time, whatever store that might be. Hopefully mom and pops, because they needed it as much as anybody.
Oh, yes.
And you're looking at the rack, and there's MegaForce. We've all gone into the back. We've gotten one of our copies, clamshell, slipcover. It's all the same. It's all good. Take it up. We've thrown down your $1. You've gone home. You've watched it. Now, how many of those 5 nights are you going to hang on to 1982's MegaForce?
Wow, Bill, would you like me to go first?
Sure.
I put a lot of thought into this. And I was eager coming out of Hell Comes to Frogtown to be like, this is not Hell Comes to Frogtown, right? But also, this series is called, and I know we don't compare them to other movies, I'm just trying to make a point here. This is the Macho Cheese franchise of Bill and Rob's An Excellent Adventure. And is this movie macho? It's macho in the sense that there's dirt bikes and dune buggies and big booms. But I don't know if I would call anyone on MegaForce macho. And this does not influence my actual rating per se. But these are things I'm thinking about as I'm watching this. And I then also thought, how long did it take me to press pause on MegaForce? Because this was not a movie I was able to sit through in one sitting. Not because I didn't want to, but because my body told me, that's enough for now. You will stop paying attention to this if you continue. And I want to pay attention. And this movie took me 4 sittings for an hour and 35 to 40 minute film, which makes me believe that I would keep this movie for 1 night. And it's not that it's a bad movie, quote unquote. It's that, like I said earlier, if I'm renting this alone, it's a 1-nighter. I can't go any further than that. If I'm watching this in a theater, I'm buying tickets every night that weekend to go for a party with my friends. If you and I are renting this, we're probably watching it 3 times, right? Mm-hmm. This is, unfortunately, is getting the 1 night for me because it's not a solo viewing experience. It has to be viewed with friends. And so that's where I land on MegaForce.
Well, that's okay because you've actually given our first variable viewing that way, I think.
Yes, I think you're right.
Which is, we've played fast and loose with this rule, and I think it's fun because you want to describe it as best you can. For me, like I said earlier, this was my first viewing of this movie. Had heard of it, and I'll tell you the other thing about it is comic books of the day hype this movie a lot. The ad for this movie is on the back of a lot of comic books down in the Bill cave. I would have brought one up, but everything is still in a disrepair since my battle with the control freak and the internet nerds. So, the cave's a little wrecked. So I watched this movie. It took me 2 nights to watch it, but the only reason it took is because I started late, and I've now learned I can't start my movies at 10 o'clock.
No.
I'm going to fall asleep. But unlike you, I did not want to turn it off.
Interesting.
I was invested. I wanted to finish it bad, and when I went and got up the next day, it was on my mind the entire day. I made a point to say, this, whatever else we do with my wife, I got to finish this movie tonight. I can't mess around. I got to know what happens. It's the kind of movie I love. It is the kind of movie that, while I've talked about what the story means, I kind of don't care.
Yeah.
Because what I'm given with the stunts and the characters, and even the fact that some of the lines are ridiculous. A lot of the lines are ridiculous, but the way they're delivered works for me. The Introvision part made it feel grand. It didn't feel like a standard B movie, which this isn't a B movie intentionally anyway. This was a big budget movie for the time and was a push by this studio, Golden Harvest, to make a franchise of things. It hits me in a good place.
Yeah.
So I've sought it out. I own MegaForce. I have owned it in my house. It exists. This movie for me is a 5-night movie.
Wow. This might be the most polarizing of our votes.
And it's not that anything that you've said I disagree with, because I don't. But it resonates on a level with me, and I think part of the thing that Barry Bostwick said in an interview was, this is a movie where the good guys are the good guys and the bad guys are the bad guys. And the world started really going grayer and grayer and grayer as time went on. Now, I'm not going to super romanticize or say we should go back to certain things, but there are times in life when you need the black and white. You need the white hats and the black hats. And I agree with you. I don't think MegaForce turned out to be that macho. I think it's glam rock macho.
Ooh, I love that.
It's in that way. And the men are men, but they're pretty much putting on a show. It's like they know they're in a movie because they're in a movie and they're doing their stuff. But there's enough of it here that really hit the bell for me. And so I have thought long and hard over the years, if I ever have another vehicle that I can customize, what would my paint job be? I have now decided what it will be.
Ooh.
It will be the MegaForce stripe job.
I love that.
On a van, on a Camaro, on a motorcycle. If I ever own another helmet, that's what it's going to be. There's just something so fun about this little movie that I watched that I'm now in it to win it for MegaForce. I want to write the sequel. I want to do MegaForce 2 in the modern day. And I want to watch the documentary that's being filmed by their super fan who got Bostwick and the whole crew back. Apparently it's coming out this year. So if you watch this movie, and we're not being paid for this, I'm just letting you know, if you do wind up being a fan of MegaForce, there's more stuff out there. It has lived on and it has found a place in my heart, and I will not let it go. So 5 nights for me. Absolutely.
I love that. We're going to have to watch the documentary and do that as an episode as well. I think we've got a lot of fun things planned for the latter half of the year. We've now hit like the middle of the year. So we start planning for the holidays around this time, folks. And it is, I think that it's got to be on that list. And Bill, I got to say thanks for bringing this. We're bringing Macho Cheese to a close next week in terms of the live streams and the recordings.
Yes.
Then all of the episodes, of course, will be dolled out, Dollman style, on our Patreon at patreon.com/BillAndRobs, which I encourage everyone to go sign up for, because for $5 you get a ton of episodes we've put out over the past couple of years, and I'm very proud of all of them. Bill, is there anything else you'd like to say before we close out this evening?
Just to give everybody that's out there, thanks for watching us. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to be part of this in any way. If you liked it, spread the nerds. That's the wrong way to say it. But hey, nerds, jocks, whatever. Spread the word about the show to other people. That's what will get us to do more and better things in the future. So we'd love to have more people just involved. This is a show with friends, not fans. That's what we always say. And to let everybody know, yes, much like the best cheese that has finally fermented and is ready to be given out to the public. Next week's our last episode in the Macho Cheese series. And if you would like to watch along, we will be going over 1984's The Ice Pirates, starring Robert Urich.
Wow, I've never
a
seen
movie
it, Bill.
that is fundamentally a part of my DNA. So just tell you, I've seen Ice Pirates, but I have not seen it and got to talk about it with my buddy Rob Schulte. And that's why we do all this, because as much as I love all of you out there, talking to Rob's best part of my week, best part of this experience.
Oh, that is awesome, buddy. Well, I can't wait to do that, and I can't wait to reveal what my next series of films will be at the end of next week's episode. So stay subscribed here on Twitch and then join the Patreon where you're going to get everything, everyone. And I want to say thank you, and we will see you next time on Bill and Rob's An Excellent Adventure.